And joining me now in studio to discuss this and the other events of the day on Opinion Court a little later, the leader of the majority, Aden Duale, seated across from me. Next to him, of course, Edward Kisiangani, who's our resident political analyst. And next to me is Jacoyo Midiwo, the leader of the minority. Gentlemen, thank you for making time to be with us tonight. I will start with the leader of the majority. It must have been a good day for you at the office. Your thoughts on the president's address?
Not a good day for me. It's a good day for the people of Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
A good day for all of us. I think it's a new beginning for our country in the war against corruption. It's a good day for me and many people, because the TJRC report, ultimately its implementation matrix has begun. Mm-hmm. And that the beginning was the public apology by the head of state on behalf of all the Kenyans who suffered in all the successive governments, starting with his late father, President retired Moi, President Kibaki. So this is a good day. I think we are beginning to start a new journey. And I'm sure Kenyans must now have a hope in the government that they've elected in 2013. So it's a good day for all Kenyans. And not just for you. Are there sentiments that you echo, Jacoyo?
Well, somewhat. I thought the president is beginning to face up to what this country must ultimately face up to. The TJRC report, which my colleague has alluded to, is a big thing. It's a big thing, and I think it takes men of men to apologize for atrocities. The state has done a lot of injustice to Kenyans over the decades, and I think it had to stop somewhere. It keeps happening, and it has become more or less the norm. And secondly, the talk about corruption seems to me like the president is trying to work with all and sundry in beginning to scratch the face of corruption, to beginning to slay the dragon of corruption. I really hope it will not remain at the at talking alone. I think action, and I hope he has said basically he has given an executive order to the named persons. I think we must begin to live within the law, and I think. Right. I cannot criticize that. I think I can only say thank you to what he has done. Yeah.
All right. Prof, often you've sat on this show and said we need more than speeches. Is this what you were asking for?
I think I don't want to take any accolades from this, but probably the president should take accolades for listening. I think he should have done this 2 years ago. I have quite often, and if the president is watching, he must remember some things I've said about him, that he has failed us in leadership. He has failed to give direction because certain things have gone wrong for a long time, corruption, so much, and a lot of people surrounding him. But today's speech shows a leader who has been listening. And that is really what he needs to do. He must listen. And today he spoke the mind of the street boy and girl like myself. And so he has started listening, and I hope he doesn't go back. So the speech was generally good. It was a terrific speech. All right. And I'm likely, I have a few other things which I would say later in the show, which I thought he could do better. But in terms of the state of the nation, I think he gave a good speech. He has sent the correct signals, and we wait to see how much action will accompany the speech. Yeah.
Honorable Duale, you started by talking about the TJRC report, which is in the House. When can we see action on it by members of Parliament?
I think the TJRC report is in Parliament. I want to confirm, and my colleague will agree with me. It's no longer, it was in Parliament since we amended it for Parliament to consider. Because the report was just coming to Parliament, and people wanted to use Parliament as a conveyor belt. Because Parliament wanted to look at even the kind of reparations that were to be given to various sections of our society who are victims of previous regimes. Secondly, the implementation process of the TGRC, Parliament was to take a role. But two things the President did very, set the ball rolling for the implementation of TGRC. One is the public apology that he made today. And secondly, is the 10 billion fund that he has set. But I can confirm to you that my colleague is here, both of us House Business Committee members. We will bring the report as fast as possible within this session.
Within this session of Parliament. All right. We're going to come back to the conversation a little later, gentlemen, but we just want to take a look at the other highlights of the President's State of the Nation address. And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Please do get in touch with us on 22422. That's our SMS line. You could tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya. And of course, reach out to us on Facebook at Citizen TV Kenya is the Facebook page. We're on Instagram as well. I'll reintroduce my panel to you tonight on Opinion Court. Next to me is the leader of the minority, Jacoyo Midio. Next to him, Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst. And next to him, Aden Duale, the leader of the majority. Gentlemen, again, it's great to have you. Aden, I want to start with you. The president, in his address, basically passed the back also to other institutions and said, this is what I can do for the executive, but Parliament too should follow suit in as far as corruption is concerned, and having those mentioned adversely in that EACC report step aside. How would such a move be operationalized? Members of Parliament are required to attend, not miss, I believe, at least 8 consecutive sessions, otherwise they lose their seats. And one wonders that if all these members of Parliament, especially those of the Agriculture and Public Accounts Committee, were to step aside, we would be thrown into election mode again. We'd have to go into various by-elections. How does it work?
Well, I think the President categorically restated what the Constitution provides. I mean, there are institutions in the Constitution that are mandated to fight corruption. And they are only answerable to Parliament. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Office of the Auditor General, the Office of the Deputy DPP, and even the control of budget. So I think that is where we should pick from. Have those institutions failed us? Because the President can only crack the whip in as far as the executive is concerned. You can even go further and say, if you are mentioned in any corruption allegations, I'm going to sack you. And I see that's where he's heading. But everybody who has been mentioned, I mean, the document is still not public, because that document has to be officially tabled in the National Assembly and in the Senate on Tuesday afternoon. So this information, these names, in my opinion, are still speculative names.
Let me rephrase my question. Would you support a move as the leader of the majority to have the names, for instance, of those adversely mentioned in the Public Accounts Committee, a scandal that is already in the public domain, step aside, leave their MP positions up until the point that they are cleared of any wrongdoing?
It's not possible because the Constitution has dealt with elective positions. It's very, very clear in the Constitution. If you're a state officer, under the category of elective positions, you will not step aside. That has been there. And this must come out very, very clearly. Only those who will step aside are those who are holding positions that are not elective. Because elective positions are they have certain time frame of 5 years. So the Constitution is very, very clear. Members of Parliament under investigations will not step aside. Public officers, the bit about what the President did today is he has given the pressure to Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission within 60 days to provide two things. Either close the file, you have no evidence against those mentioned, or frog march them and take them to court. Of course, once they're taken to court, then they step aside. So those who are under elective position, what does it say? The beauty about the whole scenario, in conclusion, is that it's good the country to know everybody in our country who is under investigation. And I think that is the beginning in the war against corruption. Corruption is a perception, so that we know who is who. Is it Jakoyo, Honorable Duale, Ann Kiguta? I think that public, document to the Kenyan people is the beginning of it. But for me, I think the failure on the part of key institutions, because two years down the line, we have serious corruption in counties. The Auditor General sends people, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and even the document we have now, they have only brought it out, I think, after the President put pressure on them. And still, once we get the document made public on Tuesday, we might even see that certain serious counties or culprits might not be in that list, and Kenyans might ask questions. What happened to so-and-so? Okay. But I think it's a good beginning.
All right, Jakoyo, what were your thoughts about the whole stepping aside issue, and what for the opposition would mean substantive action by the executive on corruption?
Well, this is what I think. Personally, I think what the waters we are charting beginning now, we have never been there before. I think it is signs that the new constitution is beginning to bite. I was telling somebody yesterday how happy I am to be witnessing what is happening. There's a lot of noise that nothing seems to be, it's all too much talk without action. I think otherwise, I think that a lot has been happening, except nothing was being revealed. We are in a scenario where the anti-corruption is accusing anti-corruption of corruption. It's an interesting scenario, where the watchdog, the key watchdog of our nation, Parliament, individuals are not just accusing each other, are not being accused from outside. MPs are saying you took 200,000, you took 1.5 million, something has to give for us to do this. Specific to your question, Majority Leader has not told you what we have been saying, what I said before the Cheboy Committee. The said committees, we must do what is within law. Number one, I think it is good practice for our political parties to recommend disbandment of those committees by withdrawing the memberships. That would be good practice.
Would ODM lead the way?
If anybody was listening to me, and I've said it, I don't want to be in an ODM that condones corruption. And I think corruption, like Honorable Dwele has said, is perception. And in any other jurisdiction, if your name were to be mentioned that you took 200,000 shillings, the first thing, you don't wake up in that position. You step aside for investigation. That would be leadership with honor. And I think it is a new thing for all of us. I think what I've been saying, that I've read a few things about constitutional processes. Whenever there is a new constitution, some people have to pay the price. And I think it is us to pay the price so that 100 years from today, Kenya will look back and say some people paid a price for living wrongfully.
Leading with honor, and I'm wondering right now, because you have said if anybody listened to you, I don't know if you're suggesting that they're not listening to you at your party in ODM,
no,
but Ababu Namwamba, the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, what are your thoughts on him remaining in that position? Should he also lead with honor by leaving that committee?
Well, I don't want to speak for Ababu.
I'm
but
asking
I want
for
to
your
say,
own opinion.
Let me say my role. Since I have been summoned to talk before the investigative committee, I went there as the leader of the opposition. They invited me in that capacity. What I'm telling you is what I recommended. I think Parliament does not have capacity to determine guilt or otherwise of its own members. But Parliament has a duty, with the leadership of Parliament especially, not the leadership of ODM or Jubilee. We have a duty in Parliament to do the right thing. And the right thing is that our whips and our leaders can withdraw members to save the image of our political parties. So it is not about Ababu. You know, the people mentioned are from both sides.
Right.
And I think that committee is wantonly mentioned. Their guilt can be determined by the bodies that Honorable Dwali spoke about. But you must ask yourself the question, do they still have the moral authority
To lead.
To lead that committee?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Prof, what do you think of the very careful answers I am receiving this evening?
You see the two leaders, minority and a majority leader in Parliament, I think they look, what you are seeing is that there are two gentlemen, very decent gentlemen, but stuck in the mud because they don't know what to do. So I want to help them on this opinion.
Please help them.
What I want to help them to do is this. The president has set the pace. Go back and look at Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, which talks about leadership and integrity. As you remember, Honorable Duale and Honorable Midio, when the law was passed to operationalize that Chapter 6, a lot of people, I think most of them who were anticipating to be corrupt, weakened that law. So the first thing to do is Parliament, as the President gave the signal, is to go back and strengthen that law, revisit it with the support of the minority and majority leader, and then put in clauses which will say that, in fact, when a member of Parliament is mentioned adversely, as they have been mentioned in corruption, they automatically lose their seats. That is within the law. So the Parliament can do that legislation because the laws are, the operationalization of Article 6 is very, very weak.
Right.
Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is about the question of the president talking about national values, because he kept on repeating about national values and inclusiveness. How can Parliament do something that will promote these national values? How can the executive do that? One of the things that is really very, very, very conspicuous in the president's speech is that he did not say much about ethnicity and tribalism. And that is the weakest part of
Actually, that is not correct, Professor.
No, I said, I'm not saying that he didn't say, but he did not say much on tribalism the way he talked about corruption. So what we're saying is this, he needs also to do this, with the same energy he talked about ethnicity, corruption, he also needs to attack ethnicity, because these two things always work together, either in the counties or in the national government. And then, again, it goes back to Chapter 6, as well as Article 10. When somebody is found to be corrupt, when somebody is found to be promoting ethnic-based things in his office, what do we do? There must not be a term limit like the majority leader is saying. Since you have 5 years, you can still do those things and just walk away.
Right.
The law must change.
Okay.
Only Parliament can make those things work, and Parliament must do the legislation.
I want to talk about more on what Parliament can do, but in light of restorative justice, a 10 billion shilling fund has been set up, the President says. And he essentially said that a lot of the cases that were brought by the DPP cannot be prosecuted for various reasons. Let me start with you, Duale. In terms of restorative justice, how would you operationalize this fund? In your mind, how would Parliament help, structure the use of these monies, and what would it go towards?
This 10 billion restorative fund is in line with the TJRC report. I mean, you don't just wake up tomorrow and say, because the government, the president, has set up 10 billion.
Right.
The TJRC report is very, very specific on incidents, on communities, the Wagala massacre, for example, on how those communities will receive those funds, both in terms of the larger community, in terms of socio-economic development of those areas. There are those who suffered during the Nyayo torture chambers. There will be individual reparation and compensation paid to people who suffered under the previous regimes. So this 10 billion is what is already recommended in the TJRC report.
Yes.
What that the Parliament will do, and there is an implementation matrix within the TJRC report that, and the President today said it, that a department will be formed, a commission will be formed outside the executive that will make sure the roadmap in the TJRC report, how much each group will get, how much will be
under
used.
The special programs?
Yes, yes.
Right.
And then Parliament, that commission will report to Parliament in every, maybe quarterly, for it to review. That's one. The other one, and I think the President today really talked a lot on reconciliation, unity, and went back to the post-election violence.
Yeah. And part of what he said is that it's time to close this chapter. And I want to ask you all, and perhaps...
No, if I finish, yes. What does he mean by closing the chapter? Closing the chapter begins with apology.
Right.
Yes. I mean, there are many people who suffered in all the successive regimes.
But let me ask you something, Majority Leader.
No, it's
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Because probably we are discussing, and we know we are addressing the nation, and this is very important.
Yes.
You have talked about reconciliation. Why are we not reconciling? Because even if Parliament is going to be involved, you can't reconcile when people continue making the same mistakes they made. For example, probably they have stolen somebody's land, they killed and nothing has happened. You can't reconcile when you have when you have employed people from your own community more than others.
Prof, you know,
so, no, I'm just
you asked a question.
Let's allow him.
So how do we reconcile? How does that fit?
Yes. Ask me a question, then I reply. You know, you asked and then you are replying. The reconciliation the President talked about, Prof.
Yeah.
You're talking about the current. The reconciliation starts from the historical injustices that were committed. Once you apologize, for example, to the people of Wagala, to Malkamari, to the Northern Kenya people, that is the process of healing, psychological healing. Then you come and do the use the fund to build the socio-economic fabric of those communities. The moment you go back to the victims of the Nyayo chamber, to the Koigi Wameres and all those people who suffered, that reconciliation, you don't begin from the end, you begin from the history. So that we come from pre-independence time, whether it was land injustice, because if you look at the TJRC report, it talks about land injustices, it talks about massacres, it talks about community marginalizations, it talks about religious marginalization for the Muslim community. There are many reports which have been written. All these have been documented. Once you apologize on behalf of that historical injustices, then that sets the beginning for this presidency, for this government, to make sure institutions like the NCIC, institutions like the Commission on Administrative of Justice, institutions like Parliament, to take their role, and the executive to take their role that we all view Kenya as a just society, equitable society, a society where each and every one of us is part and parcel.
Midio, is that enough for you?
No. Let me say this. You know, the president tried to address one thing which most Kenyans, particularly public servants and political leaders, don't understand. That thing is that we live in a country with physical boundaries, but we are not a nation. And he actually said it. He said it is time we begin to construct a nation where a Kikuyu and a Borana are Kenyans in terms of a nation. Not when you reside in your cocoon, a Luya is bad, a Mwarabu is a bad person. Those things in many jurisdictions that have gone through what we are going through, such what you do in private and public are criminal if they disadvantage another person. Let me tell you what the president did not talk about.
How do you know it? What he did not talk about?
I know what he did not talk about because I was there.
Oh.
He's a position. There's something, I mean, we are leaders. There's something we expect the president to talk about.
Yeah.
All right.
Please let him
You're right.
No, it's okay.
talk about
Let
the
me tell
gaps
you,
for you. Yes.
What the president did not talk about, which I think would move us forward. You know, Professor is a jittery man, but we will teach him how to do this
Prof
thing.
is like family.
It's like, yeah. It's like, but anyway, this document we have called our Constitution has many gaps and gaps that need to be filled. One of them, especially when you talk about, when Professor talks about we need to go to Parliament and formulate or reformulate a law where a member of Parliament can resign when he's adversely mentioned. It can't happen. The Constitution states how somebody vacates their office, and the only thing is when you are convicted of a crime. You understand? So the Constitution itself protects people who commit a crime when they are in political office. Even a governor, even the president.
Right.
We need to relook this document and say some of the things we did were wrong. A constitution, don't put in the hands of MPs.
Right.
And there was a very informed reason why we said take it to a referendum. So that the MPs, even now, I'm saying when the original document, but Okoa, Kenya or otherwise, there's need for this country to build on what the president wished in terms of people sitting on a table and say what is best for us. And the other thing which the president did not talk about, which is permeating in all the political circles and all public service circles, this thing of land grabbing. We
Which
need
is corruption.
It is corruption, but I think the president needs to address it head on because it is a big thing. It is the highest form of corruption in current times. So it is happening in the counties. It is happening nationally. And I think he said many things, but those would have also been nice of him to
hear.
Let me just add.
As by way of your final thoughts,
the message that the president has given, it is he carves out an image of a very frustrated person. So I think what I would suggest what I would suggest to him is this. He has indicated from the statement he made about the anti-corruption unit in this country, he has no confidence in it, and it is even possible that the report that the anti-corruption group wrote has excluded certain people because of corruption. So the right thing to do is the president should dissolve the entire cabinet and start with a new team.
Oh,
yes, that is the point. And then leave to Parliament the conscience of the Parliament to tell them, do they want to seek fresh mandate or not? You remember, if you go out right now, I've been coming through and I see the people in the streets, they are so happy with what the president said. So it means that he has now touched the really heart of the people. So he should dissolve his cabinet, and I think there are so many people who can take up the cabinet posts. we should start vetting. He even talked about it.
He talked about vetting.
The vetting of the police.
And said, you know, part of the problem is this whole vetting process. Because all these people who are right now holding public office and are expected to step aside were vetted. So how did they end up there?
Yes, you look at the way Kabuluti does his work. I think these people are just going there to look for money and have sitting allowances. There are people who have been vetted. Even on screen, you can see that this is a wrong person. Then they tell you that he will come back on Monday for further review, and then they are reinstated. The Parliament, and I think the majority leader can do that. Parliament should dissolve the Kabuluti team. It is not doing anything. So the president is so all these institutions are not even working, and therefore the president, the president,
I am telling you,
the guys we fired on this show, you won't believe.
The president.
All right.
The president has given you direction. These commissions are serving no purpose.
Right. Prof,
let me
So we need a new team.
Let me agree with
allow him to make his final thoughts.
Let me tell you, I agree. The president made some serious challenge to the legislature.
Yes.
He asked the legislature to relook at our anti-corruption laws. He also challenged the parliament to help him in the war against corruption in their oversight role. The president has also challenged the people of Kenya, as Honorable Jakoyo said, that we must leave our physical boundaries and come out as one country. As that may be, the constitution is very, very clear. You know, what we are going to do as a legislature tomorrow is different from what the current constitution says. For elective positions, members of parliament, it's in the constitution under what stage do they lose their seat. It's very, very clear. So that provision is in the constitution, both in the spirit and the letter of the constitution. But I think from what happened today, and if you are a public servant, in my opinion, if you are in the executive, in fact, the president, and your name has been mentioned, you are under investigation, the president has done you a favor. He has told you, within 60 days, you step aside. If you are clean, you come back. He can as well sack you. I mean, the president could have sacked all the people who are under investigations. But you know, again, the constitution provides that innocence until proven guilty. But what do we come to? Two main milestones that happened to our country today. The president did a lot of marketing of his.
Briefly, sir.
Yes, a lot of marketing on what he has done, what his government has done. But I think the war on corruption today has went to a different level, never since independence. Secondly, the president has shown both in terms of the will and the way on the TJRC report. But now he has challenged Parliament to make sure that report is debated and implemented. I assure you,
ball is firmly
and I assure you,
as
representing both sides of the coalition and members of the House Business Committee, we will make sure that before we go for this session that ends in August for the long holiday, we will debate and make sure that set everything in order.
I thank you, gentlemen, for your thoughts and for coming.
Said my last
was that okay? Let me allow you to make a final comment. I apologize. Go ahead, briefly, please.
I won't let you marginalize. First of all, the TJRC report that Aden talks about, they had doctored. That report is not in its original form. I'll leave it at that. So the president is actually telling us to begin a new Kenya. But we can't dwell on TJRC report so much because Parliament had already doctored it. Second thing, health.
Please allow him to make his
no, but while you're there, what Parliament did, and you know it's good we tell the people of Kenya, what Parliament did was an amendment to consider the report.
No, Parliament was defending
Fair enough. Let's allow to make his
just
thoughts.
To consider.
Please continue.
I don't want to associate myself with that report in its current form. But health, the issue of health, we cannot claim, the president cannot claim the kind of credit he claimed as success on health given what is happening in the health sector in the country. Lastly, I want, since Honorable Dwele is here, and I'm sure the present people are watching, the electricity cost has not come down.
True.
Not with
It's set by
25%.
25%.
No, it is
no,
not
bring
true.
your bill.
I have been talking to.
Please give us your bill.
No, it's
have
not a
a bill.
bill.
Bring a bill, I'll
But
show
you
you.
cannot
And I
talk
confirm
Allow him-
falsehoods.
let him
I have
finish.
a bill.
Let him
Bring a
finish.
bill. We will show you.
We
Dwele,
cannot talk falsehoods to Kenyans. And I know the president was reading something written by some civil servant.
No.
I can tell you many Kenyans.
And I told you about it.
Yes.
And can I come with my bill?
There is no proof.
I will come
there
with
is
my
no
bill.
proof.
You guys want
When
to...
you were talking, I was very
Please,
quiet.
please.
I'm telling you a fact.
No,
And
but
you
let's
look
get the
very
Please
bill.
bad.
allow him to finish.
We want to appeal to the government to bring down the cost of electricity, because it affects what we eat, what is manufactured in general, how we do things. And I wish the president could deal with the actual, this thing called Energy Regulatory Commission, because some hikipanki is being played there. And Kenyans are not getting the benefits of what...
I'm being accused of a different type of graft right now, which is stealing time from the rest of my bulletin. Gentlemen, I must wind up. I thank you all for coming, the leader of the majority, the leader of the minority, and of course our resident political analyst.
Deputy leader.
Deputy leader, I beg your pardon, I promoted you there. The deputy leader of the minority. I'm taking a break right now, gentlemen. We'll be back with more after this.